All right, let's start up. And for the first thing here, a bunch of stuff over here. I like to close some of it. But can I close? I don't. Let's do this. Okay. Here we go. All right, so if you look from yesterday, if you'll all look on the screen, please. Hopefully you can see this. I put in everything I asked you to put in, and I didn't bring it, I don't think, but I've got hard copies for you. All right, so if you want to see them. But now notice that when I come in here, if I put nothing in, see either one of these, okay, and I click Add, I just changed it so it put in a 0. It didn't have to do that, but I just did. Okay? And now if I do it again, it puts in a 0 for the other one. See that? So now I can at least click Add, and it will show me down here that the result is 0. Now, you might say that's stupid. Maybe it is. All right? But also, when you look, when I click Add, there's also the toast there. See that? So this is the code that you need to do that if you had problems with it. I don't know if you did or not. What I'm going to do, since I can't get the resolution on this to get any bigger, I threw it into here. I threw it into Notepad++ so we can look at it. Now, these two files right here, these two import statements that you see in gray, will always automatically be added to the beginning of every Android app you create. The first one is for backwards compatibility, and the second one is just so that it can communicate with the operating system. You get those, all right? This, I wanted to be able to write those log statements. If you want to be able to write your own log statements out to that logging area, that log cat I showed you yesterday, you've got to add this, okay? This is one that, as we go on in here, you're going to need this. That's all I can tell you, because everything is a big view in this language. So you're going to use this. All right? I'm taking for granted that you all get what these three things here do. I mean, they allow you to work with buttons, edit text, and text views, right? And this is what you need for the toast. Okay, so as far as what we did last time, etc., if you look at it, this is exactly the same as what I'd shown you before. There's nothing new there. All right? There's also, we're not working technically in a class right here. We're in a method, so there's nothing wrong with me initializing those variables. All right? I could have done result too. I didn't, just kind of as a reminder to myself. All right? But notice what I did here. I put this into a try-catch block. All right? And again, you're going to get the hard copy of this, so don't worry about writing it down if you want to, because you'll get a hard copy. I've just got it. It's right on my desk in the other room. All right? But I want to show you. This is where we're using the log is cool. All right? For whatever reason, I had the wrong exception in here. Instead of a number format exception, I had an arithmetic exception, and the program was blowing up. And I couldn't for the life of me understand why it was blowing up. So what I did was I went into our handy little log cat that's over here, all right, brought it up. Come on, where are you? Well, wherever the heck it is. You know what I'm talking about. It's down here, all right? And I brought it up, and when I did, I saw it was not throwing an arithmetic exception. It was throwing a numeric format exception. And as soon as I changed it in here from arithmetic exception to numeric format exception, worked fine. All right? And somebody tell me this. Why do you think here, look on the screen please, right there and right there. If you had to guess, why do you think I put return there? That's a forced return. Why do you think I did that? The short answer is because I wanted to get the hell out. I didn't want to go on any further in the routine. So if I put something non-numeric, if I left it blank, it's going to throw a number format exception. It'll just set it to 0 and get out. I could have set it to blank too. It would have been fine. Then if we get down to right here, if you look on the screen, that means that we had two numbers in there, whatever they were. So now it can do the addition. All right? And here was the toast. There's a lot of ways that you can do toasts, just so you know. There are a lot of ways, seeing that that's red, and I'm not sure why, that you can do. I think it's a type. It recognize it as but this is how I did the toast. I actually got online and went into the developer.android.com documentation to see which way they recommended that you write the toast. And I did it that way. All right? And here are the log statements. So please look up on the screen if you would. All right? Because we're just about done with this. But if I start from the beginning here, so if I come in here and I put in 123, I'm just making these up. I don't care what they are. And 347. 347, bless you. And I click add. Please look on the screen here, okay? In fact, I'm going to go back to here. All right. And click. So there's the toast. You can all see that. It worked. There's the answer. You can see that worked. And if you look on the screen, why won't that log thing come up? I don't know. There we go. All right. If you look up on the screen here, someplace in my mess, I've got those answers. There's the 123. There's the 347. There's the 470. All right. Last thing I'll tell you about this, then we're putting this particular lesson here to rest. That is where I put these logs. Look on the screen if you would, please. I'm going to change these to E's, to log E. All right. All I did was change it from log.I to log.E. I'm going to save it, and I'm going to run the app again under the same thing I was using before. All right. Hopefully it won't take very long. All right, it's resetting the emulator. I come in, I'm just going to keep it simple. 23 and 8. Okay, click add. Boom. Gives me 31. And there it is in the toast. But what I want to show you is here. It's kind of hard to see, but can you tell it's red? When you do your own log messages, I recommend you use a log.e because it puts them in red. It's much easier than what I did it the first time. They were all black, so they blended in. It's in your book what the colors are. One of them does it in blue. So I'd recommend you use either the red color or the blue color. Now, if you say, well, I don't want to, then don't. All right? But I believe in the other room I've got the actual hard copies of the text for you. Let me go there and grab it. I'll be right back.
Same. I had to do collaboration day. That's it.
Yeah, me too.
So there's like 50 points.
Yeah, exactly. I was just looking at that.
So here are the copies, the hard copies of what I just showed you. So you can change yours accordingly. If you don't like the way I did it, that's fine. But it does show you how to do a few things. It shows you how to handle blank input for a numeric field. It shows toast. It shows logging. So there's a few things in there that you might want to keep this. Okay? All right. What I'm going to do is spend a few minutes, not that long, a few minutes going over Chapter 2 and Chapter 3. And then I've got your actual first assignment here. And we're going to I printed it out, and we're going to take a look at that and give you some time to work on that. All right. So, drag this down. One of the things that I gave you yesterday on that F drive, everybody took that, right? All right. Hopefully one of the things that was on there, if you take a look here on the screen, is there was a folder under the cookbooks that is called Murach. And in that Murach folder, these are all the files. Just so you know, you have to unzip them. But these are all the files for the book, all the actual book applications. All right, so I'm going to take that, and right now I'm just going to extract it. But the other thing that's in here, the other reason I wanted to show you that, is if you look on the screen here, one sec, they also have an update. Oh, you can't look on the screen there. That's why I hate using this one. So it gets a short or whatever. Yeah. Tell me no signal. Let me try it the other way. Try doing it electronically. All right. So if you look on the screen, in that Murach folder is also this. They've done an update on Android Studio for 20. It still is a little old. It's 2017, but it's 3 years newer than what's in the book. All right. So it's 78 pages or 58 pages long. You've got that, and now I've got these files. So I'm going to come in here to Android, Book Apps, and I'm going to look at Chapter 3, all right, the tip calculator. Okay, so I'm going to just copy that to my desktop, and I'm going to bring it up so we can talk about it. All right, while I'm waiting for this all to finish up, and it will, I sent you an email today. I'd like you to look on the screen because I want to show you what's in it. This is especially for, well, this is one I sent yesterday. This has got those URLs for that instant app stuff. So if you want to find out more about instant apps, you've now got that. All right. The other one that I just sent you today, again, if you'd please look on the screen here, it's from here. I get a thing every day from a thing called dzone.com. All right, it's Developer Zone, so who cares? Well, if you look what was here for today's. 5 websites to learn Java for free. So what I did was I took that article, threw it into a Word document, and sent it to you. Now, if you look on, it's kind of important, so if you look on the screen, I love it when articles do this. Okay, they say, hey, what you might want to do, best course ever, Java tutorial for complete beginners. It's got 750,000 students either taking it or haven't took it already, okay? Wow, I'm going to click on that, and you get a broken link. So I fixed that link, all right? It's a free course from Udemy. There's 2 free courses. So if you're looking for even more than you're getting in here, you can go out there if you want. All right, it's in that article. All right. right, so I'm going to come in here, open an existing project. Again, Rankin. Sooner or later it'll find the desktop. And somewhere in here it has, there it is, Chapter 3 Tip Calculator. Fantastic. It does not belong to a directory. Well, I don't know if I don't think it's going to work then, but we'll see. All right. This, though, this is the code that they have in the book for the tip app that they have you work on in Chapter 2 and Chapter 3. What I'd like to do is go over what's in Chapter 2 and what's in Chapter 3, but we're going to do it quickly because a lot of the stuff is so outdated, all right, that it doesn't pay to go over it. So let me jump into here. This is that course, just so you see it. Java tutorial for complete beginners. Now notice there's almost 1 million people who have enrolled in that class. So you know it's got to be pretty good. All right? And the reason you're going to get a 4.2, I think I've asked this before, and I think there's at least 1 or 2 of you in here who share my, I love it, but maybe you like baseball. All right? This, if you didn't hear this week, they announced the Hall of Fame class, and Mariano Rivera is the first one ever to be elected unanimously. Even Hank Aaron and Babe Ruth weren't unanimous. Why am I telling you that? Because this is 4.2, because some people, no matter how good the guy is, and I believe it's John Purcell, he's English, there's people who are going to mark him down because he's English. They just are. So just so you hear it, see this, I'm just gonna play a second or two of it.
Hello, this is John from caveofprogramming.com.
See, hear that? So there are people who are going to be turned off because of that. All right? But there's a lot of good stuff that's in here. Take a look at it if you have the desire. Okay? All right. So, Chapter 2, which starts on about page 29, how to start your first Android app. The first thing to look at, if you would please, all right, this is the tip calculator they have you build. Now, when I give you your assignment, just so you know, I didn't have you make any labels like that. I just had you put in the edit text and then put a hint in there. Everybody with me? I don't care if you want to do that. If you want to actually use labels, put in labels. All right? I'm not trying to constrain you. What I did was I said develop it yourself. And then later I thought, well, at least one person might be thinking, geez, is this kind of what he's looking for? So I used Balsamic, which is something I'm going to teach you later on in the semester, to make crude little drawings of each of the things that I'm asking you to do. Come on, go in there, would you? Yeah, I know it's running. All right, I'm going to try it. Hopefully it'll stay on for a while. So look on the screen. Do you see the words bill amount, percent, tip, and total? Those are labels. Okay? If you want to put labels, remember in here we call them text views. Okay? If you want to put them in, put them in. If you don't want to put them in, don't put them in. If you want to put them in but still use hints, do that. Any kind of combination of that you want. You may want to put in labels so you get used to moving a bunch of stuff around on the screen and trying to get it so it all lines up. You may not want to do that. All right, but this is the program that they have you build in here. So as it says, it contains 10 widgets, 7 text views, 1 edit text, and 2 buttons. It's kind of important when you look at it because what they're saying in here, if you look on the screen, there's only 3 things out of 10 in here you use for input. One is where it says 3460. All right. All right. And then the 2 buttons that just have the minus and the plus, which can change your percentage. Does that make sense? All right. Widgets are also called controls. That's fine. Then they go into how to create a new project. You know how to do this now. This is old. If you look on the screen, this is old. Now when you do it, you got the pictures of all those activities. This is the way they used to do it. I think it's much nicer the way it is now. I think it's much more intuitive the way it is now. You may agree with that. You may not agree with that. Okay? Now the big thing, just so you know this, is if you look up on the screen here, it says here relative layout. Can you see where my mouse is going around? That used to be the default. Now the default is not a relative layout anymore. Now the default is a constrained layout as we've been using. When we get to a later chapter, we'll talk about how you can use other kinds of layouts. You can even embed layouts. So in other words, you can put a layout in a layout if you want to. We will talk about all that stuff in later chapters. But again, much of the stuff they have right here is now outdated. That's why I chose not to spend a lot of time on it. How to add widgets. Am I right in assuming you all understand now how to add widgets to your screen? Is that a fair assumption? All right. The easiest way is to just, I don't know, if you, well, can you double click on them too? I don't try that stuff. I mean, this is the way I learned, is to just drag it out there. You know, are there other ways? There probably are. All right. And if you notice here, notice they've got a button on top of a button. See these? They go down later and they change the size of the buttons because one has to hold a plus sign, which means take this percentage that'll be here and move it up by 1%. One holds a minus sign, which means move it down by 1%. All right? So they talk about relative layouts. I don't want to talk about that now. I don't want to talk about themes. It's all discussed in later chapters. All right? All right. You know now also, please look up on the screen, okay? You all know that way up here, you know, in your properties window at the very top, it's got the name of the control. Again, I recommended that for edit text, for example, you start every one of them with edit text. If you don't agree with that, then don't do it. But again, I have absolutely no friggin' idea. Anybody who may be looking to hire you as a Java or Java/Android developer, what they're looking for. The easier you make your code look, the more intuitive your interface, the more intuitive your screen is when you bring it up, that's what you get remembered for. You know? I think I told you this, that I recommended to Colin that he go back and I didn't tell him to reapply again, but that's what he was going to do for that job. But I said send a thank you letter and to make it handwritten. I think I told you guys this yesterday. He wrote back, "Wow, what a great idea." Well, when I told him about it a year ago, evidently it wasn't that great of an idea. I don't know, because I tell you guys that stuff all the time. All right? Now, it says here, this is what we're going to do. We are going to go back and make a couple changes to that file that I gave you, all right? And we'll look at that in just a bit. It says it's generally considered a best practice to store the display text, all right, in a separate file. So, again, what is our display text on what we did? Remember, we had enter first number, enter second number, add, okay? At least those things. What we should really be doing is taking that stuff and putting it in here. I don't know if they have anything in their strings file or not. Yeah, they do. Stop it. Let's see if I can get Charles in here. Find it both ways. Now it's in there. And like I said, when I took it out and I went with the wireless, it worked fine, but then every once in a while it'll say a network error has occurred, and then I get that same screen.
What's your wireless software? Where's your wireless software at?
Here, you want to click on there. So if you click on there and you click connect, then I undo this, and it was working. But then all of a sudden it kept coming up with a network error has occurred, and it went right back to this screen. I've never had the problem at all in that room. I go wireless all the time, and it works. It's never once been a problem.
Okay, see what happens.
Yeah, thank you.
I will tell you, we might better program to reset that wireless.
Okay.
So if you have any more trouble, I'd pull power on it and just plug it back in.
Okay. All right, I'll do that. Thank you. All right, please look up on the screen, guys. This is the strings.xml file. See that? So what you do is you say string. You give the string a name. You can call it whatever you want, but you can't have two strings with the same name. And then in between the string tags, you put what you want in there. Does that make sense? Now, look, if you would please, kind of important. So if you look on the screen, what happens then is when you come in here, and where am I? I want my layout. I want this. All right. So when you come in here then, and you've got your stuff in here, so just we click on something, and hopefully it'll load up the properties window. There we go. If you look on the screen, where it says text then, notice what it is. See this? You click here, and it shows you everything that's in that strings file. So you can pick any one you want then. And if you say, I don't get it, we'll go back and we'll do one. All right? I'm afraid to move too much because I don't want this thing to go again. All right. So here's the resources. Here's the string dialog. It looks a little different than it did before. That's why, again, I don't want to spend much time on it. Do you guys understand? I got to always watch what I say. I don't know if Evan and Paul watch these tapes ever, but this is one reason I didn't want to use this book. Because I knew that it was outdated. And I told them that. And guess what? We're using it next year too. Okay. So they explain here in the book on page 43, if you look, that's what I just showed you. Those are the string files. All right. And they explain why you do that. I mentioned this to you yesterday. It's for what's known as localization reasons. So if you decide that you're going to put the app in different languages, it's much easier to do it that way. All right. Setting properties. And again, this is old. Do you at least understand where the properties window is? Does everybody understand that? The only way you're going to learn about the properties of the different things in there are to play with them. All right? So, if you'd look up on the screen, please. Again, I guess you'd say this is kind of important. All right? So, notice here, And I'm going to click on this to make it bigger. I'm going to get rid of a couple of these things here. Get rid of that. And yeah, keep that. Click over here. Let's just, there we go, at 6%, that's why. There we go. All right. So if you look up on the screen here, it doesn't matter which one you choose, but I'm going to choose this. I'll choose where it says total right there. All right. You already know this, but what I'd like you to do, please, is to take a look here. I'm going to go into text mode. All right. And notice the stuff that's in here. You see this? Some of these are default things. Many of them are. But if you notice, for example, this text view that says bill amount. See where it says 20 SP? Everybody see where I am? I'm going to just manually change it here to 36 SP. And I'm going to do a file, save all. Then I'm going to jump back in to text view. I'm to design view. Now, you might say, well, I can't even tell. Yeah, it will go in. If you change it, it'll change. If you change it in one, it'll change in the other. All right? All right. So I'm going to come over here to text. So the bottom line is what you'll learn when you work with this enough, you can go into either design mode or you can go into text mode to change things. Either one of them will work. And that's pretty much what the author is saying here. All right. Common properties. Please look on the screen. Kind of important. Virtually everything you put on a screen will have a width and a height. It should make sense to you. All right. You can set those. Now, notice right there it says match parent. All right. When it matches the parent, typically it'll try to be greedy and take everything that it can. All right. You can work with padding. When you change the name of a property, you are changing what's called that property's ID. And it just went again. Okay. In the book, and I know that some of you got an earlier edition, which is fine, but if you have the book on pages 49, 50, and 51, they show the XML for this tip calculator program. All right? Now, is that important? It is if you want to start being able to go in and map up changing something in the XML text and see it change in the XML design or vice versa. All right. Believe it or not, that was already the end of Chapter 2. So I'm jumping into Chapter 3. How to finish your Android app. Well, that involves writing the code. Okay? First thing they mention in here, this is actually a really good chapter for you to take a look at if you want to understand the different stuff that's in the code. It says here, when you create an Android project that's based on a blank activity template, it automatically creates the class for your first activity. All right? That's the one that we've already done. In not too long a time, we're going to add additional screens. All right? And then we can add new activities for those screens. Android runs the onCreate method once the activity is started. So when you start your program, if you remember, the onCreate is where I put the code yesterday. All right? There's also that R class. You saw that yesterday. And in that R class, we did that find by ID. Then in parentheses, we said r.id. That R class is the bridge between your XML file, .xml, and your Java file, .java. All right? In the book on pages 60 and 61, they tell you how you get references to the different widgets. All right, please look on the screen. I've got it back at least temporarily. All right. Again, you have to import the corresponding Android.widget file. Then you create the variable. Then you get a reference to it. All right. I'm not going to ask if that makes sense because we did go over it yesterday. If you don't understand all of the ins and outs, take a look at what's here. These are book authors, and they're giving you their take on it. And Evan, I believe that even in the first edition, it's virtually the same. All right. Again, some of the text might have been updated since then. I don't know. All right. Second, this is new, so please look up on the screen as long as we have a screen. It says how to handle the editor action event. We haven't looked at that yet. All right. It says an event handler is a special method that's executed when an event occurs. Guess what? You do know that. The on-click event was the event that registered or happened yesterday when we clicked the button. All right. In general, there's 3 steps to handling an event. First, you need to import the interface. That was that on-click listener that we did yesterday. Okay. Second, we had to go in and actually create the listener. And third, we had to connect to or wire up the listener. Again, in the book, they show it here, all the steps on page 63. All right. There's the import statement. There's the implements. And there they're setting it up and wiring it up. We'll have to do more and more as these apps get more and more complex. Does that make sense? All right. Now, the stuff they talk about here, it used to be, back in the olden days, like 10 years ago, that when you brought up a numeric keypad like this, so if you were in here, running your program and you clicked on something and the numeric keypad came up, it didn't go away. So you had to use these IMEs, these input method editors. You typically do not have to do that anymore. Get and set. When we did yesterday the get text and the set text, if you are confused or were confused, look on pages 66 and 67. As mentioned on page 67, get text returns your text. Set text will allow you to set text. Notice again, you saw this yesterday, that when you do the get text, you must also add a .toString on the end. That's just the way this stuff is set up, period. So on the bottom of page 67, I think it is, they say for most widgets you can use get text and set text. If necessary, you can use the integer.parseInt, double.parseDouble, float.parseFloat, parseFloat, etc. If necessary, you can use the number format classes. So if you want to use percentages or you want something to 2 decimal places, you can use that. What do you mean number format? Didn't we do that in Java? Yes, we did, Jeff. All right, we did that with all the stuff that we did with the employee classes. We wanted stuff to be dollars and cents, for example. How to handle the click event is shown on pages 68 and 69. Okay? And it says here, the steps for handling the click event are the same as the steps for handling the editor action event. Now, I don't think I'm telling you anything you don't already know, but if you would please look up on the screen. Let's assume that you're working on your first assignment and Tony forgets. He's like, geez, I don't remember that stuff with the buttons or how we did that. Please, either go out to here, developer.android.com, and search, or Google it, and one of the first ones that should come up, if not the first, should be developer.android.com. Because Android changes so much, this site changes often. But this is the ultimate go-to when you don't remember how to do something. chances are fairly good if you go out to YouTube and you find a YouTube video that's, like 3 years old, it might be so out of date that it might not help you at all. This is new too. Please look at this. I talked about this a little bit yesterday, but this shows it. On pages 70 and especially 71. Yeah, that's a pretty ugly picture. But it shows you what happens while your program is running. Okay? You turn it on, you start it, you get into created and started. Then at any time, you can pause. Again, your phone rings. Something happens. And notice there, then you've got to tell it to resume again. And they will talk about this in a little bit, but you have to do what's called your save your instance state, so the system knows where you are and what you're doing. The 3 common states are explained in a lot of depth here on page 71. All right? Then underneath that, the author says, when you create an activity, Android calls the methods of the activity class at different points in the life cycle. And here's a scary thought. I just showed you this. The author's mentioned it. That's not even everything that happens. All right, that's all I could fit into a picture. But as they say on the bottom of the page, to learn more about all the life cycle methods, look up the activity class in the Android API. Where can you get to the Android API? From developer.android.com. All right. Then they go in and they talk about this saving and restoring values. Please look on the screen. This is that shared preferences. So what they show you in here for an example is this. If you look up here. Okay, here's my phone. Let's say I put that tip calculator on my phone. And I'm running it. But for whatever reason, I can't read enough stuff, so I do this. This literally causes a pause to happen, even if it's very momentary, because it's got to reset everything for that. All right? That's what they're talking about in here. So if you've got variables, if you either turn it or the phone rings or whatever, there's some kind of an interruption, then you can choose what variables you want to save. All right, so when that's when you pause, but when you resume, you've got to set them back again. All right? Don't count on the software to do anything for you. All right? I mean, the software itself is stupid. The person who created the software and made it do something, they're typically smart. But the software itself typically isn't going to be bright enough to say, hey, Matt, I'm about to go from portrait to landscape. Would you like me to save this stuff? It's not going to do that. All right, it won't be saved. All right, then they show you the Java code for the app, and there it is, and they explain what's in here. Now, is this more complex than what we did? Of course it is. There's more code. All right? I thought of having you type this in. I'm not going to do it. All right? But they show it on like 75, 77, 79. All right? So they show you that stuff. All right? Now, the chapter ends with additional skills. They talk with how to work with a Gradle build script. That's something if we look at it at all, we won't look at it until later on in the semester. Same thing with dependencies. Now the manifest, if you remember, I mentioned this to you yesterday, the manifest file, there it is. All right? And one of the things that you can do with the manifest file is you can set, so if you don't want to have the default Android icon, you can set a different icon in here. There's other things that you can do as well. We'll look at some of them fairly soon. Notice that when you create icons, if you look on the screen, all right, first of all, there's a thing called the Android Asset Studio. Everybody hear that word, asset? Because that word is used basically in Android land and in iOS land to mean, hey, stuff you might want to add. Audio files, video files, icon files, etc. They're all considered assets. Android has got a thing that's called the Android Asset Studio. If you decide you want to be able to go in and use different types of icons, go there first and look. They might have already what you're looking for. We'll look at that as we go on in here. All right, and then the last thing that's described in here is the Android documentation. All right, that's it. So we've now gone through Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3, and Chapter 4. I'll try to bring this up one last time and see what it does. All right. I am right now going to walk over. I'm going to put it, whoops, I'm going to put it here, not there. I am going to grab that, and I'm going to give you your first homework. It's 4 pages, all right, because there's 4 programs. With each program, that's in there, I've got a picture of it on the back. So when you look at this, each page has a front and a back. Tony, I think you heard this before, and you know that group that you're working with in the morning. When they took their first test, I had 2 people out of 12 who took the test who didn't realize there was on the back page there was the matching, and they never did that. So what I did was I gave them back the test, and I said, I stood in front of them and I said, you have 60 seconds. Okay? Well, now we're up to Chapter 6 in the book. But when we did the test for Chapter 5 last week, would you believe somebody still did that? Because I couldn't believe it. It's like, I can't even get mad. So, these are all things you've done before in other languages. All right, I was more concerned with you building the interface and getting the stuff in there with logic you already understand. So the first one, as it says, create a simple Android app called MPG. Your inputs will be the miles driven and the gallons used. You'll determine the miles with the MPG, design the app yourself. At a minimum, it should include this stuff. I'm not going to read it to you. Look on the next page or turn it over. This is one way. What you see on your screen right here, this is a product called Balsamic. I'm going to teach you how to use this. You can map out how an entire website will look. Paul does this for all of his homeworks. He knows this a lot better than I do. But if you look on the screen, so I'm imagining that either this will be an edit text and this will be an edit text, or if you want to put text views for labels in there, you put one there and one there. Make sense? I don't care which way you do it. You'll have a calculate button and a clear button, and then you'll have a text view on the bottom that will show you that information. Now, go back to here. Look on the screen. Okay, use constraints and use a toast if the miles are out of range. I gave this range. For miles, you can go from 1 to 1,000 miles. For gallons, 1 to 100 gallons. So if you put in for miles, I will run this on all of yours. I will put in an amount for miles that's less than 1 and that's greater than 1,000. A toast should appear on the screen that says that the miles are out of range. Does that make sense? I will do the same thing for the gallons used. Does that make sense? All right? The calculate button should not allow for blank input for either one of the edit texts. The paper I gave you today shows you how you can do that. You put it in a try catch. I want these suckers clean from the first one you create. All right? The clear button, look up the focus. See how to put the focus on it. It's not hard. All right? And a text view. And make sure the MPG is calculated to 2 decimal places. You can do that in different ways. You can do a string dot format. Look it up. All right? You can do a number format class like we did before. I don't care. All right? And I don't mean to be going too nuts over this, but do you all understand when you look on the screen what I'm asking for? Is there anybody who doesn't? Again, if you don't like this right here and you want a label here that says miles driven and make that smaller and one that says gallons used to make that small, that's okay. If you decide, you know what, Jeff, I want those buttons at the bottom of the screen. If your program works, put them at the bottom of the screen. I'm showing you a way that you can build this interface. That's all. Then number 2, the good old BMI. All right? I don't think there's any more languages I can give you the BMI program in. But I like it because, you know, you have to use the logic. You know what the logic is already. So you'll have, if you look on the next page here, this is another way it can be built. Enter in the height, enter in the weight, click calculate, and you'll get something like this. Click clear. It should clear out this text view. It should clear out these edit texts, and it should put the cursor right there. Does that all make sense? All right. If you don't like what I use, going back to this page, if you don't like my constants, the range of 12 to 96, if you're like, nobody in the world's ever been 8 feet tall, Jeff, I want to use 12 and 84 for 7 feet, then do that. All right? If you don't like 777, it was originally 666, but then I get people accusing me of you know, being in concert with the devil. So I said, the hell with it. So I made it 777. Again, use constraints and show a toast if the height is out of range, if the weight is out of range. Do not allow for blank input. You handle that whatever way you want to, but you handle it. The calculate button, I didn't put it in there, but you know it's going to actually do the calculation. If you look up on the screen, please. If you forgot the formula, there it's hyperlinked to. All right, if you forgot how to do the status, what those numbers are, it's hyperlinked to there. I'll send you an electronic copy of this as soon as we get done with this lecture. All right? Notice on all these, all of them. I'm going to go back to number 1 here. Not number 1, but number 2 says for 5 points extra. You don't have to do this. All right? On Monday, when you come in, it's going to be lab except for the first half hour, we're going to build something where we use images. All right? I forgot to create it before class today, but I will do it by Monday. Did everybody hear me? And I'm going to try to keep it no more than a half an hour, really. But I'm going to start right on time. All right. Then number 3. It's the guessing game. You've done this before. You will have just a single edit text. The range, hey, look on the screen. Jeff screwed up. That should have said 1 to 100, not 1 to 199. Please change yours. All right? It should be 100. My fault. All right? So please change yours. All right. Use a toast to say either guess too low, try again, or guess too high, try again. This, you can say correct guess, but I want you to actually put the number of guesses, etc., in a text view on the bottom. It's all explained right here. Everybody see this? Because we've never done this before, but I'll let you think about how you can do it. If you want 5 points extra credit, keep track of each valid guess made by the user. So Evan's playing the game and he guesses 37. And it says too high. Couple guesses later, he says 37. Guess what? It's still too high. But what I want you to do now is if you guess a number that you've already guessed, give them a toast that says you already guessed that number and don't count it as a guess. Does that make sense? You don't have to do any of these extra things. Sometimes people get them done and they're looking for something extra to do. Here's again a way that you can create it. Finally, on the last page, extend that adder x3 thing and make it a real simple calculator. In other words, it should look like this if you look on the screen. Oh, all right. I'll try to bring it back. The good news is if anybody ever watches this tape, the tape doesn't go blue. All right, so there it is. So you put in a first number, drop-down list. We haven't talked about those yet. Look it up. It's not hard. Put these values in there, plus, minus, etc., the 5 values. Enter a second number. Have a calculate, have a clear. Do not allow the user to divide by 0. I'll let you handle that. All right? If you try doing that, the program will probably blow up. And again, if you want extra credit, work on it, make it look like a real calculator. Does all this make sense? Is there anything I just went over with you that does not make sense? All right, I apologize. I'm going to have to talk. Charles says he thinks I got to unplug that and plug it back in. That should fix everything. All right? But if any of you are on the internet, that's the wireless access point. So if I unplug that and plug it back in again, you'll all lose your connection for just a minute. All right? So if you do have questions when you're working on this, ask me. Last thing, I promise. Do me a favor and do this. Okay? On your piece of paper, go to the top of the back of the front page, right here, and type in here, due 2/4/2019, 4:25 p.m. So it's due a week from Monday, all right? I'm just going to put it on every page that's in here because I'm sending this to you in just a minute. If you find any errors in here, I, of course, did not try to put in any. That doesn't mean that some didn't get in here. All right, so if you find an error or if something like, I don't think that's what you meant, let me know. Look on the screen. That's how they're graded. See that at the top? For each one of these 4, they're worth 25 points each. First, I'm going to put in valid inputs. So I'll put in 400 for miles driven. I'll put in 16 for gallons used, and it should tell me my miles per gallon is 25. Does that make sense? All right. Then I'm going to go over the bad situations. Out of range miles driven, out of range gallons used, etc. And did you handle them the way you were told? Third, sound correct logic used. Look on the screen. It's got an asterisk there. What does that mean? That means that if you took 50 lines to write what you could write in 2, that's not really correct logic. I don't know what it is, but it's not good. And finally, does the app have a good overall look and feel? I don't care about colors, but if you want to change colors, if you want every one of yours to be Patriots colors, do it. I don't care. All right? So you all understand, again, when you add that up, 5, 10, 25, you're going to get a grade between 0 and 25 on each one of these. All right? I'm done.